Hey everybody, this is Tim from Monarch Historical Fencing here, and today we're going to talk a little bit about footwork and studying from the treatises. So I have here a clip from Spring Fectin from earlier this year. Why do I want to go over this today? Well, earlier today in Tryhard, somebody was asking about showing off excellent footwork. I don't know if this is excellent footwork, but it is footwork, and it's footwork that I am particularly proud of. I think maybe more advanced fencers might look at this and just be like, "Oh, this is just kind of what you do." Uh, but a lot of beginner fencers might not think of this situation, what you're about to see in this exchange, at all. So I'm trying to hit my lane, which is kind of high intermediate, as opposed to I'm not going to try and prescribe footwork or anything like that to anybody else. The way you learn the art is the way that is best for you. But this is how I like to do it. Is I like to learn from the treatise and then apply it to harder situations like tournaments. So let's look at the exchange, and we'll go over it play by play afterwards. All right, pretty simple stuff. It's like a 6 to 7 second exchange. It's not super long. Most exchanges aren't, unless you're kind of sitting there looking at each other. But I thought it was a fun exchange. And I'm going to go through each section of this exchange to kind of explain what I was thinking, why I was doing it. A little more context. This is, I think, like the third exchange that we had. So I had a little bit more information about how she was fencing that day. And I kind of knew a little bit better about what I could get away with and what I wanted to do. So let's start by like just going how I approach the beginning of not just this fight, but almost any fight. Um, as you can see, I am pretty nonchalant when I walk into the ring. This doesn't really matter which fencer I'm up against. 90% of the time, I'm going to be very cool in the ring. The reason is I find it to be very off-putting for my opponent to be calm and just stand in the space and not look as though I am agitated or on high alert or reactionary. This is a skill that I've developed over a long, long time that other people might disagree with. In fact, I have been specifically given advice from other fencers who are probably better than me about, hey, just get in there and just corner your opponent as far into the ring as possible so they feel like uncomfortable and unsettled. That advice is not bad. If you want to take that advice, that's perfectly okay. But what I have found, especially in the way that I fence, is that if I rush in on somebody, it gives them the chance to stuff the rush very easily because they are very reactionary at that point. And once people become incredibly reactionary, they stop caring about things like doubles, things like safety, um, which are two very important aspects of making sure a tournament is successful and your time in fencing is successful. If you are being incredibly reactionary or facing against people that are very reactionary exclusively, then you're not really learning how to counter people. You're learning how to take advantage of fear, which I will tell you that fear is not there at higher levels of fencing. They don't care if you're rushing at them. They don't care if you're bigger than them. They don't care if your sword is longer. They don't care if any of that stuff, what your experience is, what trophies that you have on the mantelpiece. People who are experienced, they don't give a shit. They are going to strip you down just like a beginner fencer if they can do so. So giving them these opportunities of, being overly aggressive, that's not something that I like doing. What I do like doing is what I'm doing here. Kind of just nonchalantly walk into the ring. If they want to press me and go fast, that's fine. My footwork is fine in these moments. Yeah, I'm just walking, but I can, as you see, I stop a little short because she's getting a little close. I immediately move into a more basic stance. to begin negating her first action. And I have at this point said, okay, if I move in to range, beyond Zufectin or Gioco Largo, I'm going to use Italian terms. So if I move more to Mezzaspada, I know that she's going to snipe my hands. She's going to attempt to. It's a thing that a lot of fencers do, regardless of skilled level. If they think that they could get an easy shot at your hands, perfect. I use that to my advantage here, and I say, okay, you think that you're going to snipe my hands? Nope. I'm going to negate your attack with a cut downwards and make you feel uncomfortable, and then I will move into Poseidona and back up in order to stop the return blow. Right here, it looks a little more scary than I was really feeling. But this idea of allowing the threat to come, then negating the threat, this tells something to your opponent about the situation. It says, I know what you're going to do. I'm not afraid of what you're going to do. I have an answer for what you're going to do. And that usually makes your opponent uncomfortable. So she finishes her movement here a little unsteady, and I am sure of myself. I know that as soon as she is set, that she is going to be set, because she wants to either aggress me or she will take my aggression without moving backwards, because the previous round she did so. So I'm going to move in. Some people will look at this, they'll say, hey, you should have shield howled and hit her simultaneously. Yeah, I could have. But to me, because it's so low, her blade is so low in comparison to me, I felt like a shield howl could have ended up with her getting a hanging parry and cutting around to my right side. But instead, I engage with the blade because I feel like that's a safer place to be, and it's the art of defense and not offense. I feel like that's safe, so I engage the blade, allow her to, attempt to finish her thrust with the blade engaged. I move forward, knowing that my blade is now, well, it was on top of hers, but I know that if I move my blade in a way to put my quillions underneath her blade, which it is in this position, that I will be able to conduct colpo di Bolano, which is move in Fiore. So at this point, I say, okay, passing step, I move to another kind of posto di Dono, which we'll get into. I use a volta or torna, depending on who you're talking to switch my feet position, opening up this line on her right side, because her sword here in this position, as I'm stepping past, I know, since I have locked her blade out, that she cannot attack me underneath because she's too extended. She can't attack me from her right side because the blade is locked out. So where she's going to go? Where is she going to go? You have one guess. She's going to go and try and attack my right side. So as I displace her blade, I kind of encourage her by pushing her blade up to turn around and attack my right side. She does so. After getting her blade closer and higher up, she pushes down into my blade. My blade. As you can see, right here, our swords are crossed. She's past me, but she's kind of pressing my blade into myself. And after this torna, where I'm now facing her, her blade is locked off once again, and her right side is open because her blade is past me. She can't pull it back and stab me because I could just snap to her hands or to her face. She can't, she could potentially push into me, but it would not have stopped this situation. She could have tried to retreat, which she kind of does. And in that retreat, she continues pushing the blade against me. You could see I have spun my blade from kind of a coda longa after pushing her blade down back into posta di donna, and I attack that line. I attack through and end with a step outwards and going into dente de zingaro. As you can see, her blade just barely kind of grazes me in this position, but she is moving backwards. She is not attempting to stab me. She's basically trying to go for a draw cut, but even in a t-shirt, because of the closeness and lack of power behind that draw, it probably wouldn't even have cut me if these were sharps. That's not saying anything about her ability or anything like that, but it's what I planned on happening. So we step out, go to De Zingaro. I'm ready to break a thrust with an upward cut if she attempts to re-engage, but we both know that I have hit her at this point, and we just kind of relax and continue onward. Give each other a little nod because we're friends, and that's what you do after a good point, and then line back up. So that was a long explanation. Let's go through it a little bit quicker. I move in lazily. I negate a cut to my hands and then defend myself by ensuring that my blade is moving upwards to defend against an Oberhau or a Fendente. I back up to ensure my distance is correct for any follow-up motions, but I know for a fact that I'm pretty safe here, so I move forward again, rocking back forward to put the aggression on, because I know that once she is engaged, she's going to re-engage me at the first opportunity. I do so by capturing a very obvious thrust line because of her position, her sword position in posta breve. I capture that line. I move past her, knowing that she is going to attempt to push past me and attack my right side after her blade was captured. I move my sword downwards and kind of shove her blade downwards in order to go to kind of a coda longa. I move my blade and wheel it upwards for a fendente to her right opening, cut her forearm or bicep perhaps. I think it was her bicep. And then move further away in order to ensure that I have distance if there is a follow-up thrust or other action. But the point ends. And like I said, we give each other a little nod. So, as I said before, more advanced people might look at this exchange and be like, it's just kind of what you do. It's something that you practice. But I feel like a lot of beginners will look at this and be like, wait, what the hell? You're purposefully moving your feet in that way and positioning yourself so you could take advantage of that footwork. Well, yeah, that's what that looks like. That's what we're talking about when we're saying footwork is key and provides you openings and does things to make your fencing a lot easier and a lot more accurate and deadly. And the way that I got to understand this footwork is by reading a treatise. So we are going to open up a little Wichtenauer, go to Fiore de Battaglia, and to one of my favorite sections of Fiore de Battaglia because it is, I wouldn't say it's contentious the way that this is translated, but some people might think of it differently. I believe the term that Fiore uses here is volta, or instead of torna. Let's see here. Yeah, volta stabile, and messa volta. So he uses volta, and some people are kind of back and forth about the translation of what volta means in this particular context. But I've always liked Collins' translation since it has become available. And what this does is it allows for an interpretation of these images and of his words that go beyond just kind of saying what it does, right? So, in particular, the second passage here, and from each guard you can make a turn in place or a half turn. Sure, yeah, it's called a quarter circle, a circle step, or whatever. A turn in place is when, without actually stepping, you can play to the front and then to the rear on the same side. So, a turn in place is just kind of like switching around. A half turn is when you make a step forwards or backwards and can switch sides to play on the other side from a forwards or backwards position. So what I'm doing here is a half turn. So when we first started translating treatises many, many, many years ago, people didn't know explicitly what he meant by this situation. A lot of people were just like, oh, these two images are just a way of saying that Poseidona can be many different things, and in a way it is. That's not wrong. But what he is showing here is how Poseidona can be used with these turns in place in order to complete different actions. Particularly in the case of this video that we're reviewing, Copa de Villano. So with this knowledge here, let's review where the footwork really pops off, as it were. So my nonchalant footwork and my step into a more normal footwork position, that's standard. Everybody knows how to step, do a passing step, do gathered steps and front steps. But where the footwork starts getting useful is right here. So I've made the decision to strike with Copa de Villano by going under the sword and guiding the sword around. I do so by stepping past. Boom. So you could see my feet, my hips, even my face is pointed in this direction. I'm saying hi to this guy over here, right? Or maybe, somebody at the corner of this ring. But without moving my feet, I am simply switching my feet around to turn and face this direction. So this comes directly from this passage. Then I'm able to complete one of Fiore's plays by using the footwork which he has described. Let's also review the sword position a little bit. So, I say so a lot, I apologize. From this sword position, I am in Poseidona, right? I move to capture the blade in Poseidona. This mutates and turns around into this position. What does that position look like? I wonder. Any takers, any guesses on what that position looks like? Maybe a little similar. Here, let's keep going. Oh, maybe that looks a little bit more similar, huh? I'm gloating for no fucking reason here. I apologize, but straight from the manuals. I take literally no credit for being able to do this by myself. And then from this position, which is considered Poseidona, I'm able to warp into another Poseidona very easily and fendente downwards. The fact that this is so closely related to the treatise, this is why I like this exchange. Maybe it's a little, I don't know, ego stroking or something like that. That's really not the intent of this video. It's just to kind of express, hey, if you don't read the treatises, that's fine. But there's some pretty cool shit in the treatises that we could use in tournament and be effective with as fencers. I firmly believe that there is no reason to reinvent the wheel. If we can innovate upon the wheel, great. do some crazy stuff that's a little bit different, that takes and is inspired by all of these things. But in general, fencing's a solved game mathematically, but not intellectually. When we go into the ring, there's no telling what my opponent can do out of all of these hundreds of different plays, until I fence them and I observe them for a long period of time. And being able to do so and fit these things that we can succinctly practice into appropriate action in more intense situations like tournaments, it makes me feel good. Frankly, I mean, I feel like a proud practitioner of the art when I do this. So I hope that this video has been somewhat, I don't know, illuminating for people who maybe are a little newer, and at least entertaining for people who are more advanced than I am. I really enjoy reviewing footage, both of myself and other people, to kind of see where I can improve, see where other people can improve, what they did right, especially because reviewing what they did right is a surefire way to make your game better, I will tell you. But that's it. I hope everybody enjoyed this little ego stroking review, and I hope everybody has a great day. Stay floaty out there, everybody. This has been Tim from Monarch Historical Fencing. Peace, peace.